Welcome back to Otaku Daikun. Dai-chan here, and you're watching the Waifu Files, a series where we discover and celebrate anime and games through their lovely ladies. In today's episode, we've got a metric butt-ton of waifu to cover from Final Fantasy VII. This includes not just the original game, but Crisis Core, Remake, and Dirge of Cerberus. The only entries in this compilation I'm ignoring are the mobile games, as I usually hate mobile spin-offs, unless they have some mind-blowing babe I just have to share. Be aware that I have an official playlist for the Waifu Files, filled with lots more for you to see when you're done here. I also upload these as YouTube shorts, but those lack the nice 4K resolution and full coverage. What you're watching right now is the real deal. Before we get started, consider buying this Dai-chan Dakimakura from Cuddly Octopus. Celebrate your fandom with the most cuddly merch out there. It's spicy, so I can't give a direct link, but you're just a quick Google search away. Without further ado, let's dive into one of my all-time favorite stories. Final Fantasy VII takes place on a planet, Gaia, which is being bled dry of its energy by a greedy corporation named Shinra. Its Mako reactors, which power Shinra's technology, siphon energy from the life stream, the ethereal force that living beings are born from and return to when they die. To prevent the planet from drying up and crumbling away, a terrorist group named Avalanche sabotages Shinra's exploits, and in doing so stumble upon the world's greatest enemy, Sephiroth, a man who aims to wound the planet and absorb the life stream in order to travel the stars. Our first waifu then is Jenova, the alien creature responsible for Sephiroth's madness. This vaguely female figure crash-landed on Gaia during ancient times, where it preyed upon the native people, the Cetra, by turning them into monsters or fiends. The Cetra were able to seal Jenova away for 2,000 years, when Shinra excavated her remains to produce super soldiers and other abominations. Sephiroth was born from Jenova's cells, and he considers her his true mother. She's a phenomenally creepy villain, but unless you're sick enough to tap that, we'll move on to more humanoid waifu. When Shinra discovered Jenova, they also found Ifalna, the last living pure-blood Cetra. Back then, Shinra's science division was led by Professor Gast Faramist, a kind man who fell in love with Ifalna. The two conceived a child, Aerith, before Gast's subordinate Hojo killed him and took Ifalna and Aerith to Shinra's headquarters in the city of Midgar. There, Hojo subjected Ifalna to painful experiments, but luckily a different researcher, Faz Hicks, supplied her with meds to endure her torment. Faz helped Ifalna and Aerith escape Shinra, securing a place for them to live in Midgar Sector 3. Sadly, Ifalna wasn't able to survive the trip, passing away from illness just outside the Sector 5 train station. She begged a stranger to keep Aerith safe, entrusting her daughter with the White Materia, a magical orb that let the Cetra speak with the planet. Overall, Ifalna's a beautiful woman who is plagued by tragedy. Despite this, she never gave up hope. The stranger she trusted in her final moments was Elmyra Gainsborough, a hard-working woman who married into the Gainsborough family. She and her husband Clay worked at the family business and found peace together until Shinra started a war with the nation of Wutai. Clay joined the war effort, and on a day he was supposed to return home on leave, Elmyra waited for him at the train station. This is where she found and took Aerith in at Ifalna's request. Aerith brought Elmyra companionship during a time of loneliness. This proved profound when Clay died in a helicopter accident. Before Shinra could deliver the bad news, Aerith already sensed Clay had returned to the planet, proving her lineage is a Cetra. Elmyra tried to keep this a secret, but Shinra eventually discovered the truth, wanting Aerith to reveal the location of the Cetran Promised Land. Elmyra struck a deal with Tsung of the Shinra Turks, guaranteeing their safety in hopes that Aerith would one day remember the Promised Land. Despite her homely attire, Elmyra is tough as nails, ever protective of Aerith in the face of Shinra's threats. The two of them cultivate a spectacular garden in the slums, which is a rarity in Midgar. Let's talk about Aerith herself. After her mom's passing, she became the very last member of the Cetran race. Her father being an ordinary human didn't prevent her from inheriting the Cetra's intimate bond with the planet. She can sense and communicate with the life stream, which is why Shinra wants her to lead them to the Promised Land. It's not like she has any formal knowledge of her ancestry, though. She instead becomes a humble citizen of the slums, helping those in need while selling flowers throughout Midgar. She grows her own private garden at the Sector 5 church, which bizarrely brings her visitors from the city above. First was Zack Fair, a member of Shinra's elite soldier unit. During a mission, he fell from the Sector 5 plate and landed in Aerith's flower bed. He promised to repay her with a date, and it was even his idea for her to sell those beautiful flowers. The two became a couple, though their meetings would always be cut short by Zack's work. Their very last date came before Zack was dispatched to Nibelheim on a mission he would never return from. Long story short, Zack was injured, and Professor Hojo used him and his friend Claudia Strife as test subjects. Zack broke out of Hojo's lab and carried a Mako-poisoned Cloud all the way back to Midgar, only to be gunned down by Shinra's troops. Poor Aerith knew nothing of this, instead writing to him a total of 89 letters, only one of which would actually reach him in time. Cloud went on to be Zack's living legacy, and just like Zack, he found himself falling from Upper Midgar into Aerith's flowers. He winds up protecting Aerith from the Turks, and later rescuing her from Hojo's lab at Shinra HQ. After a life of being sheltered in the slums, Aerith yearns for adventure and journeys with Cloud in his pursuit of Sephiroth. This has Aerith learn of her ancestry, and it's thanks to her sacrifice that all of Gaia is saved from Sephiroth's meteor fall. Guess she got sick of things dropping on her from above. Aerith is a naturally spiritual girl, kind and compassionate, even in dire straits. At the same time, she's playful and quirky, embracing the vast world around her. There's a lot of shipping wars going on over whether she's the right girl for Cloud, but personally, I'm gonna have to pass on her. You'll know why soon enough. Earlier, I mentioned the Turks, a code name for Shinra's General Affairs Investigation Section. They're like Shinra's CIA, hardened professionals who match even the top Shinra military officers, and they do it all classy-like. Our next waifu, Cissnei, was a Turk who befriended Zack during Crisis Core. She was an orphan who was adopted and raised from a young age to become a Turk. Her rough upbringing made her distrustful of others, but under Tsung's tutelage, she became friends and allies with her fellow Turks Reno and Rude. They may serve a scummy company, but they do strive to ensure public safety. Shinra became concerned with Zack's loyalty after the death of his superior officer Gillian Hewley. Cissnei then was assigned to monitor Zack, even joining him on vacation at Costa del Sol. Beyond her ulterior motive, however, she's sincerely worried about his well-being, staying in contact even when she's brought in to handle much of Shinra's dirty work. When Zack and Cloud are designated targets by the Shinra army, Cissnei supports them, conflicted about her orders to capture them. Since childhood, she wished for wings, believing them to be a symbol of freedom. Following that logic, she eventually leaves the Turks to look after Zack's hometown of Gongaga Village. She aids the villagers when a nearby Mako reactor explodes, and stays on to lead their youth coalition. Apparently, Cissnei isn't even her real name, because technically, players could name her during Before Crisis. If you're one of the very few people to experience that game, what did you name her? Regardless, she's my favorite member of the Turks, and I recall being quite excited when she showed up on the beach. Not far behind her, though, is Elena, the Turks' latest recruit. She was the child of a Shinra military instructor, and her older sister Emma used to be a Turk. This made Elena jealous and competitive, refusing to join the Turks so long as her sister was still a member. To differentiate herself, she practiced martial arts, and even when compared to Emma, Elena was a prodigy, scoring the highest on exams. Before officially joining the Turks, she worked as a bartender in Wall Market. She finally decided to step up after Avalanche kidnapped her and held her ransom for materia. Her very first mission comes when Reno gets injured while dropping the Sector 7 plate. She accompanies Rude in pursuit of robed figures that follow Sephiroth's trail. While she's extremely talented, Elena criticizes the orders she receives, unless of course they come from Tsung, whom she deeply respects and admires. She actually has a crush on him, but fails to convey her feelings properly. Elena is by far the most impulsive of the Turks and a welcome member of their team. After the events of the main game, the Turks look into curing a disease called geostigma, which ails Shinra's president Rufus. She's an effective villain/rival throughout the game, and for as inexperienced as she is, you still don't want to get on her bad side. I always wonder whether I should include old ladies in this series, but I figure I could at least mention Gillian Hewley, Angeal's mom from Crisis Core. She was a Shinra researcher who sought to create soldier clones. This had her transplanting Jenova cells into her own womb and using her DNA to create the villainous soldier Genesis. She later regretted her involvement, returning to her home of Benora to raise Angeal in poverty. Despite distancing herself from Shinra, Angeal grew up to become a soldier, and she took her own life out of guilt. She's yet another of the many tragedies plaguing Crisis Core. The tragedy continues, to an extent, with Tifa Lockhart, the series' best girl. Tifa was born to her parents Brian and Thea in the town of Nibelheim. Sadly, Thea died when Tifa was just 8 years old. The town had a superstition that people could commune with the dead by crossing over the treacherous Mount Nibel. Her 3 closest friends, Emilio, Tyler, and Lester, pressured her into making the trek, only to abandon her when they encountered an unstable bridge. Cloud, who also grew up in Nibelheim, mainly cherished her from afar, but tried to help Tifa when she slipped. The 2 of them fell from the bridge, getting injured in the process. When Tifa's dad found and rescued them, he blamed Cloud for the ordeal, putting even more distance between them. That said, Cloud never stopped caring about Tifa. When her cat, Fluffy, ran away, Cloud rescued it in the mountains, but lacked the confidence to admit it was him who did so. Eventually, though, Cloud gathered the resolve to invite Tifa to meet him at Nibelheim's water tower. He declared he'd visit Midgar and become a soldier just like his idol Sephiroth. In response, Tifa asked Cloud to promise that, should she ever be in danger, he'd come to her rescue. While waiting to read about Cloud's fame in the newspaper, Tifa trained in martial arts under her master Zangan. Against her father's wishes, she sparred with Zangan, developing a unique fighting style she could use to protect herself. This qualified her to escort a team of Shinra soldiers to the Mako reactor on Mount Nibel. She never realized at the time, but Cloud was one of these men, hiding behind his generic Shinra army helmet. He never reached the rank of soldier, and was embarrassed to show himself. Sephiroth was also a part of this team, and during his stay, he learned about his connection to Jenova. In a fit of madness, he set Nibelheim ablaze, slaying the villagers on his way to reunite with Jenova's remains. Tifa's dad followed Sephiroth, and when she chased after them, she found his corpse at the Nibel reactor. Sick of Shinra for ruining her life, Tifa took Sephiroth's sword and attacked him, only to be easily subdued. Sephiroth sliced through her chest, sending her down the reactor stairs. Despite this, Tifa survived, but only after Zangan took her to be treated in the town of Corel. There, Dr. Shirin performed surgery on Tifa, but advised she be taken to Midgar for more advanced care. Zangan complied, but refused a Shinra facility in favor of a doctor in the Sector 8 slums. Tifa received numerous skin grafts, as well as artificial bone for her spine. After recovering, Tifa paid for her debt and living expenses by selling steamed buns for a Mr. Manson. Eventually, she met an old lady named Marle, who hooked her up with an apartment in the Sector 7 slums. This led to her getting a job as the bartender for Seventh Heaven, and even inheriting the joint after its owner died. This bar became a secret base for Avalanche, more specifically an independent cell led by Barrett Wallace. Tifa helped the gang, and they in turn helped her. Before long, Tifa took up their cause to fight Shinra for the planet's sake. Then finally, after all this time, she encountered Cloud and convinced Barrett to hire him for their reactor assaults. Even though Tifa's a competent fighter, Cloud still remembers his promise to her. They have the biggest score to settle when Sephiroth reemerges. Tifa's got all the best qualities. She's insanely hot, compassionate, and talented. She's there for Cloud in the face of his psychological collapse, helping to recover his true identity. She's also the first waifu in this video to be stamped as a certified favorite. I've been crushing on her since 1997, and I doubt that's gonna change anytime soon. Again, Marle here's an old lady in Sector 7 who owns the Stargazer Heights apartment complex. She's an Avalanche sympathizer who offers Tifa a place to stay, even taking on a protective, motherly role. Marle's a street-smart informant the slum citizens can count on. Going back a bit, we can't forget about Cloud's mom, Claudia Strife. Apparently, she was a bit of a rebel, looked down on for aspiring a life outside the village. This led her to fall in love with a passing traveler whom she had a son with. That said, she wound up a single mother when her lover returned to traveling, never to be heard from again. This was tough, especially when the village blamed Cloud for Tifa getting hurt at Mount Nebel. Still, she was free-spirited, both allowing Cloud to join Shinra and welcoming him back for a visit. During their last meeting, Claudia was proud of Cloud, urging him to go find a girlfriend who would take care of him. Unfortunately, she fell victim to Sephiroth's rampage, trapped inside her home when the roof came crashing down on her. Barrett's independent Avalanche cell consists of allies he made in the Sector 7 slums. One of these recruits was Jessie Raspberry, a girl from the upper plate who learned to oppose Shinra after her father fell into a Mako storage tank. While her father worked as a chief maintenance engineer for Shinra, Jessie instead aspired to be an actress for the Gold Saucer, an affiliated amusement park. Her dedication earned her a top spot in the production of Loveless as a beautiful princess. Unfortunately, though, when her father had his accident, she moved back to Midgar and studied planetology. She began to better understand the planet's life stream, believing her comatose father was in a state between life and death. By stopping Shinra's harvesting of Mako, she thought she could help her father rest in peace. Thus, she joined Avalanche, taking charge of rigging the bombs they used to destroy reactors. It was thanks to Jessie that Tifa learned about and later joined the team. While living in the Sector 7 slums, Jessie maintains a close bond with her mom, albeit a dishonest one. Her mother still believes she's training to become an actress. Thanks to Cloud signing on, their cell of Avalanche is able to finally make an impact. Jessie admires Cloud and is clearly thirsty for him. Her enthusiastic flirting comes to an end, however, when Shinra tries to drop the Sector 7 plate, crushing the slums below. Jessie fights to the bitter end to prevent this, and while she fails, she helps buy more time for people to evacuate. Even in death, she and her partners Biggs and Wedge live on in Tifa and Barrett's memories. In the remake, it seems the Gold Saucer still uses Jessie's performance, which must have been recorded into the VR Loveless experience. Barrett's got his own waifu, Myrna. She and Barrett lived in the struggling mining town of Corel. They sought to revitalize their economy by letting Shinra install a Mako reactor nearby. However, when the reactor later suffered a meltdown, the company tried to save face by framing and slaughtering Corel's people as terrorists. Myrna was killed in the raid, sparking Barrett's hatred for Shinra. I suspect his passion for saving the planet is how he carries on his love for her. Barrett's closest friend, Dyne, also suffered from Shinra's corruption. Dyne and his wife Eleanor had a daughter together, but their family was broken up during the raid. Barrett thought Dyne was lost for good when he fell from a cliffside. Eleanor certainly died in the ordeal, leaving behind their daughter Marlene. Believing himself to be one of the few survivors, Barrett adopted Marlene as his own, taking her to Midgar to escape resentment from the other villagers. For as doting a parent as Barrett is, he lacks a feminine touch, relying on friends like Tifa to help teach him. As a result, Marlene's growing up to be a precious child with a good heart. She lives with Elmyra in Sector 5, while Barrett and Aerith travel the rest of Gaia. After all, until Sephiroth and Shinra are stopped, there's little hope for the future. Speaking of Shinra, it's usually quite the sausage fest. Scarlet bucks that trend by being the head of Shinra's weapons development. Don't be too quick to praise her as a girl boss, though, as she's truly wicked and ruthless. Even when her troops are too hesitant to fire on innocent victims, Scarlet is more than happy to take up the task, laughing haughtily as she murders them. She views others as inferior pawns, literally using her own subordinates as footrests and lapdogs. Her weapons helped Shinra massacre its enemies in the Wutai War, and she continues to research new forms of destruction. Her current obsession? Materia. While materia can form naturally, Scarlet opts to conjure her own in a laboratory setting. She is most intrigued by the materia embedded in the planet's defense system, the weapons. Beyond that, she relies on biologically engineered monsters and mecha like her Crimson Mare and Proud Claude. I've got to admit, she's sporting some supreme cleavage, but her cruelty and arrogance offset that by quite a bit. As far as villains go, however, she's a welcome adversary. Scarlet happens to be the primary nemesis for our next waifu, Yuffie Kisaragi. She's a materia hunter who travels the world on behalf of her kingdom of Wutai. By gathering powerful materia, she hopes to restore Wutai to its former glory. 1 year before the Wutai War, Yuffie was born to her parents Godo and Kasumi, though her mom would pass away from illness during her childhood. Yuffie grew up to see her proud hometown settle into a mere tourist attraction. In disapproval, she accepted orders from the new Wutai government to sneak into Midgar and steal an ultimate materia Scarlet was trying to develop. Yuffie trained in Wutai's prestigious ninja arts, which proved to be an asset when she teams up with the main branch of Avalanche. Together, they hope to appropriate Shinra's strongest materia. Yuffie's direct partner winds up being Junon Kusakabe, a fellow warrior from Wutai who has his own beef with Shinra. Armed with fake ID cards, Yuffie and Junon infiltrate Shinra HQ, only to run into Scarlet herself in an elevator. Even though Yuffie and Junon defeat Scarlet, they fail to capture her and are instead attacked by Nero the Sable, an experimental human weapon created in Shinra's deep ground facility. In the end, there is no ultimate weapon to acquire, forcing Yuffie to escape the building on her own as Junon makes the ultimate sacrifice. Yuffie bears witness to the fall of Sector 7, and for as horrifying as that is, she channels her sorrow and resumes traveling Gaia in search of materia. Her journey brings her to Cloud's party, and she joins them, initially hoping to swipe all their valuables. Eventually, though, she realizes that their interests are mutually beneficial. Can't restore Wutai if the planet gets destroyed, after all. What makes Yuffie great is her impulsive optimism. She fights for a good cause, but is naive to the deeper political issues between Wutai and Shinra. She also suffers from motion sickness, whether she travels by water or air. Regardless, her attitude always brings her to the side of justice. While Tifa's still the ultimate babe, I can't help but stamp Yuffie as another certified favorite. It's hard to believe that, in the original game, you could avoid recruiting her entirely. I suppose she's been featured in enough work since then to make up for it. When Yuffie partnered with the main Avalanche group, she met Nayo. As a member from Avalanche HQ, Nayo was responsible for monitoring the Sector 7 slums. It was a fitting task, given how she was born and raised there. She plays a very minor role in the story, mostly helping Yuffie and Junon attain their fake IDs. That said, she stands out enough to be seen as a target by Don Corneo's lackeys, who want to bring her back as a candidate for Corneo's bride, or rather, temporary prostitute. Thankfully, Nayo was able to avoid that fate, as well as escape Sector 7 when her base is raided by Shinra. Avalanche proper is more or less put to rest by the fall of Sector 7, leaving Nayo and her colleagues to search for a new way to oppose Shinra. Junon's hatred for Shinra stems from his past fighting in the Wutai War. There, he lost his sister, Melphie Kusakabe, to a devastating explosion. Melphie passed away in his arms, sparking his desire to eventually sabotage Shinra HQ. Yuffie reminds Junon of his sister, which is why he gives his life to help her escape from Nero the Sable. Melphie is very pretty, and it's sad that she didn't survive the war. If you couldn't already tell, Remake introduces a lot of new side characters. Another one is Madame M, a respected figure in Sector 6's wall market. Part of a trio with 2 others, she has a say in which girls are put before Don Corneo as bridal candidates. This gets in the way of her business, where she gives life-changing hand massages. In fact, she hates when potential customers wind up seeking her just to gain an audience with the Dawn. Well, Tifa becomes a candidate to interrogate Corneo, and Cloud and Aerith try to follow suit. Madame M finally approves Aerith after Cloud wins 1 million gil in the Corneo Cup, an underground fighting ring. After Corneo is effectively chased out of Midgar, Madame M takes this chance to venture out and explore other business prospects. She's alright, I suppose. Just how good can a hand massage be, though? Perhaps I'm missing out. My favorite NPC from Final Fantasy Remake is Kyrie Canaan. As a child of the slums, Kyrie struggled with her parents, who made their living from theft and pickpocketing. Kyrie and her friends played at the church, but ran away whenever Aerith showed up. They thought she was creepy. Kyrie developed a phobia of fire after her friend Kadaj died from arson. Cloud encounters her as a tomboy bandit who winds up stealing the key to Don Corneo's treasure. She manipulates Cloud into protecting her from Shinra and continues to cause Cloud trouble by masquerading as a mercenary beyond Midgar's walls. Sure, Kyrie's bratty and annoying, but she's also extremely hot. Call me shallow, but she's another certified favorite. I'm not the only one either, as Sakura Miko also pines for that bare midriff. Oh, and it turns out Kyrie's maternal grandma, Mireille Dudley, is known as the Angel of the Slums, a Robin Hood-esque figure who steals to help the poor. Kyrie wants to be just like her, but feels inadequate, needing encouragement to do things her own way. Final Fantasy games have a lot of summons, but the most sexy by far is Shiva. Her blue skin from Hindu mythology is used in-game to represent her affinity for ice magic. Shiva's diamond dust must be extremely cold to outweigh how insanely hot she is. Down at Chocobo Bill's ranch, you'll find Chocobo Billy and his kid sister Chloe. They lost their parents as children, and so they rely on each other to get by. As a kind gesture, Chloe recruits Cloud and Aerith to help her make a flower crown she can give to her brother. That's pretty decent development for a shopkeeper NPC. When the party reaches the underside of Junon, they encounter Ronda, who immediately recognizes them as Avalanche fugitives. As the mayor and sheriff of Under Junon, she could have turned them in, but chooses not to, out of her own resentment towards Shinra. She values her pride over any reward money. That, and her son Dylan, is part of an anti-Shinra group living in Crow's Nest. In the original FF7, Cloud had to resuscitate a girl named Priscilla after she was attacked by a boss fiend. I bet modern Square Enix took issue with how she wanted to marry Cloud, acting like it was a serious proposal. To avoid this, it seems her role mostly shifted to Yuffie, but I'm okay with that, since Priscilla has received one hell of a glow-up. Very cute. Beyond that, her role is exactly the same. She's a friend of dolphins, taking interest in aquatics after Shinra's underwater reactor contaminated its surroundings. She trained her main companion, Mr. Dolphin, to a point where he can jump high enough for Cloud to access Junon proper from below. It's fun seeing Priscilla get excited whenever you rock the dolphin minigames. When Cloud and company do reach Upper Junon, they pretend to be Shinra soldiers to score an audience with Rufus after the parade. This has Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith being ordered around by a female Junon Commander. She appoints Cloud to lead his own division during the parade, hoping he'll earn them a special commendation. I like her attitude, but she's also really gullible. To accompany the card minigame Queen's Blood, we have Regina, a professional who rivals Cloud throughout his journey. I really like her design, and she gives context for how the card game gets out of hand. Basically, the game is cursed by an ultimate card sealing away the evil Shadow Queen from ages past. Desperate to win no matter the cost, Regina uses the card, letting the queen possess her. After losing to Cloud in a duel, however, she realizes how unhealthy her obsession became and lets Cloud seal the queen card away with its antithesis, the Emerald Witch. As far as rivals go, I put her above Gary and Nemona from Pokemon. I just can't get behind that whole shaved head look. Johnny seems to be Remake's main comic relief character. He left his home in the slums to start his own hotel at Costa del Sol. He's also got an unrequited crush on Tifa. Who doesn't? But all along, he's had a different girl pining for him. Meet Jenny, an attractive NPC who has a rotten work ethic. She wonders what Tifa has that she doesn't, but admits defeat when seeing how earnest and dedicated Tifa is with even basic tasks. Sure, Jenny's no Tifa, but she's definitely on par with the other babes from Costa del Sol. That leads us to a trio of waifu who suck up to the mayor and Professor Hojo. Naomi, Fran, and Yorda are designers for Costa del Sol's premier fashion boutique, and they entertain guests to fund their artistic endeavors. In search of new inspiration, these beauties observe Cloud and Aerith on a date and eventually come up with a new batch of swimwear. If only they didn't have to endure being around two of the game's sleaziest men. Honestly, most all the NPCs in Costa del Sol are phenomenal, but these three serve to embody that appeal. Perhaps the greatest NPC glow-up goes to Esther, the chocobo jockey from Corel Prison. In the remake, it's not actually a prison, but rather a den of sketchy degenerates led by Gus. He wants Cloud to win an upcoming chocobo race, and Esther gets assigned as their jockey. As a manager for the chocobo riders, she doesn't get in on the action herself, but that's fine, because she's fine. Certified favorite, baby. I swear, it's like they catered all the game's fashion specifically to my tastes. I suppose I should also mention Mai, the AI tool created by Chadley to aid us with combat intelligence on the field. Not much to say, other than I wish she could replace Chadley with literally everything else. All she wants to do is help out, but Chadley treats her, his own creation, like a nuisance. Pot calling the kettle black. Now, we're leaving the remake continuity to focus on Dirge of Cerberus, an after-story centered around Vincent Valentine. Vincent used to be one of the Turks when he first met Lucrecia Crescent, one of Shinra's Class A biotechnologists. She worked under Vincent's dad, Grimoire, discovering the planet's massive weapon creatures. One of those weapons, Chaos, killed Grimoire. Lucrecia felt guilty about his death and hid her connection to Grimoire from Vincent as they grew closer. Poor Vincent fell in love with her and even tried to console her when he learned about her past. Lucrecia's guilt was too much, however, and she turned to Hojo of all people for comfort. This might just make her the dumbest character in the whole story. Anyway, Lucrecia is most known for her work on the Jenova project, during which she had her own child, one she conceived with Hojo, injected with Jenova cells at the embryonic stage. This led to her giving birth to Sephiroth. Vincent tried to oppose this, but was shot by Hojo and used for inhumane experiments. Lucrecia saved Vincent by making him Chaos's vessel and sealing Chaos's wrath within Vincent using an ancient proto-materia. After giving birth, Lucrecia was forced to give up Sephiroth without even getting to hold him. Visions of Sephiroth's future sins flooded her mind, and she tried to end her own life out of emotional trauma. However, the Jenova cells in her body prevented this. Unable to die, she fled to the crystal cave where Chaos once resided. To this day, she remains in the cave, encased in crystallized materia. Vincent still cares for her, visiting the cave to speak to her crystalline form. I can't say I'd ever do that for a chick who ditched me for friggin' Hojo. Following Sephiroth's meteor fall, the World Regenesis Organization, or WRO, was formed to help restore the planet. It also serves as a surrogate government now that Shinra has lost its influence. This clearly Riku-inspired waifu, Shalua Rui, works for the WRO as a soldier and scientist. She's a former member of Avalanche, who joined in order to rescue her sister Shelke, who'd been abducted by the Turks as a soldier candidate. Shalua was horribly injured during a mission, losing her left eye, arm, and various internal organs. These were replaced by mechanical prosthetics which keep her alive. Even in this state, she's still a formidable marksman and diligent scientist. She's never given up on finding her sister, and eventually succeeds during Dirge of Cerberus. Feeling guilty for what Shelke has become, Shalua sacrifices herself to let Shelke and Vincent escape from Deepground's Azul the Cerulean. While Shalua survives the encounter, she remains unconscious in a medical capsule until she can one day be revived. I know her outfit is utterly ridiculous, but I love that kind of stuff. Gotta make her a certified favorite too. Too bad the game she comes from isn't exactly a masterpiece. As I said before, Shalua's sister Shelke was abducted by Shinra due to a rare ability she possessed. Specifically, she was made into a lab rat for Deepground, Shinra's top-secret military organization. Below Shinra Tower, her genes were spliced with that of Genesis from Crisis Core. These experiments caused her growth to stunned, such that her body always looks 10 years old despite being 19. Another side effect has her relying on daily treatments of Mako to survive. Thus, while Shelke can fight, Deepground never sends her on field missions. Instead, she supports the other members through Synaptic Net Dive, or SND, the process of uploading her consciousness into a virtual reality network. This basically lets her hack other people's minds. Ultimately, the soldiers of Deepground are being manipulated against their will, mainly by Professor Hojo, who had uploaded his consciousness to the network. Even after Shinra's demise, the members of Deepground hope to release the planet's final defense system, Omega. Shelke initially fights for this cause, but changes sides after reuniting with Shalua. She helps Vincent thwart Omega, and after the conflict, she finally gets the chance to lead a normal life. Another of Deepground's warriors, Rosso, wasn't so lucky. She was actually born in Deepground, forced to survive vigorous training all her life. She dreamed of seeing the real sky rather than just projections. Instead of pursuing her happiness, though, she found herself fighting against the WRO to summon Omega. Rosso is both stubborn and skilled, so when she loses to Vincent, she refuses to let him kill her. She instead plummets to her death with laughter. While I love her outfit, as it reminds me of Reen dressed as Archer in Fate, her stupid haircut is a huge turnoff. It's like this chick has handlebar sideburns. Now, there's one last waifu I want to mention. She should have appeared in Rebirth, but because that game skips all of Rocket Town, this right here is the best official image I have of her. Shera was a scientist who worked on Shinra No. 26, a rocket commissioned to fly into space. Just when this rocket was about to launch, Shera noticed a flaw she wanted to fix. She was still in the hold moments before launch, and to prevent her from getting fried, the rocket's pilot Sid Highwind aborted. Shinra gave up on future launches, effectively ending Sid's dream of reaching space. Shera accepts the blame for this, enduring Sid's angry tirades. Eventually, however, Sid is finally able to launch the rocket, and he realizes Shera was absolutely right. There was a flaw in the oxygen tanks, causing them to explode. Sid and Shera reconcile and eventually get married, though all of this happens off-screen. I could wait to see if Shera's included in the third remake, but that's not coming along anytime soon. Perhaps I'll revisit her if Part 3 introduces enough new waifu. With that, I just covered a whopping 38 waifu from the Final Fantasy VII multiverse. Hopefully I didn't miss any more, aside from characters original to before Crisis anyway. I also have no idea if that Battle Royale shooter had any waifu, but those games can fuck right off. Games released on console should never drift to mobile, where great franchises go to get milked to the bitter end. Enough negativity though. I have always loved Final Fantasy VII, beating it more times than I can remember. It's great to finally do this justice by highlighting my favorite females. Again, don't forget to check out the full Waifu Files playlist, and let me know what you'd like me to cover in this series in the comments below. See you later!
Thanks for watching.
If you enjoy this channel, help us grow by liking, commenting, sharing the video, subscribing to Otaku Daikun, and
most of all, smashing that notification bell so you don't miss out on all our anime lore, discussions, and Let's Play content.
You can support us directly through Patreon, Subscribestar, or a YouTube membership, all of which come with benefits like spicy exclusive vids and early access.
As always, celebrate your fandom. I want to give a special shout out to all my $10 and up supporters. Video Gamer 75, Dante Pendragon, Stephen Elak, Samuel Gersten, The Nonchalant Ostrich, Otaku Mom, Jens Bauman, Mystic Samurai 1983, Lord Omagoden, Freebrick, Alexis Yukio Gomez Yamato, Link Pendrago, Observer Bellis, James Hewitt, Uncanny EXP, Zamas Autonomous, Scout, Yuki Eidos, Crow Kalem, Saul Soto, Tristan Riggin, Meifu Mado, Caitlin P, Sogai CH, Vladimirovna, The Taz 96, Jonathan Padua, Kengo X77, Hairsha of E-Rated Hands, Alistair Bernadotte, and Akakaze Yume. Thank you all so much.